Hi there, this is Jean Kellett, and this is my presentation on the Omaha tribe. The story in our text, called A House of Our Own, tells about Joseph LaFlesche and tribal members that pursued the U.S. Congress to apportion them separate plots of land for each. A little history on the Omaha tribe. They began as a larger woodland tribe in the Plains area. In the early 1600s, they inhabited the area near the Ohio and Wabash rivers. A portion of the tribe members are now known as the Quapaw. They left and settled further southeast in what's now Arkansas. The remaining Omaha members then settled near the Missouri River in what's now northwest Iowa. At some point later, the Poncas left and became an independent tribe, but they actually settled near the Omahas. On this map, you can see the area of Nebraska and where the Omahas settled, and also the nearby Poncas. The first evidence of European contact is dated in the early 1700s, and the writer described what he saw, 400 dwellings and a tribe of more than 4,000, which is a sizable establishment, a city. And they were the first Northern Plains Indians to adopt the equestrian culture, which means that they were forward-looking. They saw the changes happening. They saw that riding horseback could benefit them and also help protect them. They were located at that time near the Big Sioux River and the Missouri River in what's now present-day Sioux City, Iowa. The tribal territory ranged from the Cheyenne River in South Dakota all the way to the Platte River in Nebraska, and is why the French had nicknamed them the Wandering Nation, because they were spread so far. The Omaha controlled the fur trade in the upper Missouri River, which was quite a powerful stronghold for them. Unfortunately, the smallpox epidemic of the 1800s wiped out about 1/3 of their tribes, including Chief Blackbird. Chief Blackbird was instrumental in establishing trade with the Spanish and the French. He believed that it would offer them protection from larger tribes. The trade was so successful, so prosperous, that the Spaniards actually built a fort nearby. And after the Louisiana Purchase, the U.S. focused their efforts on trading in the Omaha region. There was so much manufacturing going on, and the Omaha women worked so hard that their average lifespan in that era was age 30. But they also did find that many of the Omaha women were buried with much more silver and belongings than even some of the men, which showed that they were actually quite prosperous and an integral part in the economy. The journey southward was due to Sioux aggression and the disease that hit them. So between 1819 and 1856, they moved further south and established villages in what's now Bellevue, Nebraska, along the Papillion Creek. There were 5 treaties made with the U.S. government and the Omaha tribes. The first treaty was in 1850, and it put the Omahas under the protection of the United States. Big Elk, Chief Big Elk, and 6 other Omaha chiefs signed the treaty. It was known as the Treaty of Friendship and Peace, because that was their purpose, their goal in it, and no land was ceded. However, in the following 4 treaties, large amounts, the remaining land was ceded. The Treaty of 1854 is significant. I won't detail every article here, but if you are interested, you can take the time to read some of the more notable points of that treaty. They gave basically all their power over to the United States, probably not knowing the president actually had final word on the decisions about where they lived, and the distribution of their profits and the payments that were to be made to them under the treaty. In addition, they had to live as the whites did. They had to live as, quote, civilized people in the whites' point of view. They had to build homes according to the white standards, their farms and their ranches, schooling, their clothing, their food, their weapons, and medical care were all had to be done according to white standards. And they had to agree that they wouldn't enter into war, they wouldn't declare war. Um, they could, of course, defend themselves, but they weren't allowed to go to war against another tribe, or especially, of course, the United States. It's notable that Chief LaFlesche asked in that treaty that alcohol be kept away from them, that it not be brought in and it not be allowed, because he already saw the devastation that alcohol was causing, which had been brought in by the colonists. In their appeal to Congress, Joseph LaFlesche and some other English-speaking Omaha Indians went to Washington and appealed for individual allotments of land. Up until that time, the land that had been granted them, it was actually their own land to begin with, by the U.S. government, was held in joint tenancy with the entire tribe owning it together as one. However, they saw that it was necessary for each tribal member to own their own land because of the laws of the United States and how colonization was taking effect, and they wanted something to be able to leave their children. The tribe was actually split over this, some of them wanting to keep traditional tribal ways, owning it in whole, and others being that they wanted individual allotments. Alice Flesher, the anthropologist and advocate, actually lobbied on their behalf, and it was after that that the following year the Omaha Allotment Act was passed. Unfortunately, the outcome was not good for them, and they ended up losing about 2/3 of their land. They had to sell it for various reasons, to pay taxes, because they didn't understand the land leasing system. They didn't understand the laws of heirship, when somebody passed away, all kinds of problems that they ran into. Chief Joseph LaFlesche was actually born to a Canadian-French father. He was a fur trader, and a Ponca mother. And he would travel with his father on his fur trades, and he learned and interacted with many of the various fur trading tribes, learning the language. He was later adopted by Chief Black Elk and into the tribe, and he was the last chief of the Omaha tribe. He saw the way things were going with the invasion or the takeover of the colonists, and saw that they had lost their own way of life and that it wasn't coming back. And he felt like the best way for them to survive was to own their land individually, as the whites did. And he worked to gain rights, landholding rights for his tribal members, the same as the U.S. citizens had. He encouraged action in both the American and tribal ways. It wasn't because he was a sellout. It was because he thought this was best for their survival, and so that they would have a chance. Children were very well educated in the American system, and all of them became leading advocates for the Native American people. Probably most notably is Suzette LaFlesche, who was the interpreter for Standing Bear during the Supreme Court trial that we recently learned about. She later married one of Stander's attorneys, and she continued throughout her life to advocate for the Native American people. The Omaha tribe of today is still in Nebraska. There's approximately 5,000 members today. They are federally recognized tribe. They are self-governed. There's about 3,000 that live on the Omaha reservation. They are still governed by a 7-member council, which is elected every 3 years. And they have a very sophisticated constitution and tribal code. If you go to the website that I show on this page, you can actually see it is very much like the own American system, as far as being a sophisticated. They also have numerous successful tribal business enterprises, so they have shown their strength and their resilience. Actually, Joseph LaFlesche's recommendation that they become educated in the American ways as well has served them, because they've been able to accomplish all this despite um, all that came against them and tried to wipe them out. They have survived and they are strong today. So thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope you learned a little bit of something.